everybody.
Are we recording?
We're recording. I'm James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. We're here on the Grit Show. We're filming. We're recording a bunch of these today, so it's been some amazing conversations already. As always, Tyrell Gray,
my man, dude. So glad this has been an amazing day. And I'm more excited about. Like, this is a good friend of ours coming on.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked. This is like, honestly, this is the guy that hopefully every young man grows up. Like, if my kids grow up to be like this man, I'm stoked. Like, I've done my job. Like, I've succeeded as a dad if they can be like this guy.
So I just got the news that I'm going to be in a executive fight night. And
that's right, for OUR.
For OUR, we're raising money for Operation Underground Railroad. It's our partner charity. And I'm terrified. I'm terrified. They said you're going to be in the main event, and I'm like, I've never boxed before, and they're like, perfect, you're in the main event. And then they're like, hey, we just got Bruce Buffer, he's going to make the announcements, and we're going to do the lasers and the smoke, and what's your walkout song? And I'm just like, I don't even have boxing gloves yet. And so our guest today has a pretty good boxing background. He's got gloves in the background, and so hopefully he'll grace me with his presence over the next couple of weeks as I train for this. I've got about 10 weeks as of this recording to get ready for it. But I'm super excited, but I'm terrified. But again, when I got the phone call and when they invited me on it, I instantly got terrified. I wanted to say no. And then I said, I tell people around the world on every single stage to do things intentionally that make you feel uncomfortable. And so I'm like, I have to say yes to this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice. So I'm super excited. I'm a little bit heavy right now. I got to get down to 172 pounds. Yeah, it's going to be an amazing experience. This should come out prior to that. Hopefully there may not be, but there may be tickets available. Just jump onto my social media, Iron Cowboy James. There'll be a link on there to grab tickets. So should be a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, it's going to be amazing. And that segues right into our guest. So, dear friend of ours, Justin Prince, how are you, brother?
Man, honored to be on with you guys. Two of the baddest dudes around right here. Well, so I'm honored to be on.
James, I'm not sure I qualify, but I'm going to hang out with both of you.
I was going to say James for sure, and you're like low key baddest dude around. Hey. Just no one quite knows, you know.
Yeah, just a low key cowboy. That's all that matters. How have you been, man? What have you been up to?
No, I'm doing great. It's funny. I was speaking in North Carolina about a week and a half ago. And James, I was sharing one of your stories. So I was sharing the concept I was sharing was lifting the lid. So you guys have heard this, at least the first part, because I'd heard the first part as well. I never heard the second part. But those scientists have put fleas in a little jar, right? They'll put a lid on, and a flea can jump 48 inches straight up in the air, right? They'll put them in this little jar, let's call it 4 inches high. After 3 hours, so not 3 months, not 3 weeks, not 3 days, but after 3 hours, they can unscrew the lid, and the fleas will now, instead of jumping 4 feet, which they can anytime they want, they'll jump just to lift the lid.
Quit getting distracted. Don't know Justin, like you got to follow him. The guy's got arms like my thighs. Like,
the guy's packed,
actually, they're bigger, dude. They're big.
Dude, insane. Keep your arms down because I retract the
intimidation.
I retract the invitation for you to punch me in the face. It's no longer on the table. We're done. Don't show me those again. Continue your story.
Listen, this is like this is my two fittest friends, dude. This is like this is not holding well for me.
Mine and Tyrell's biceps didn't even weren't the size of what I just saw. It almost covered your face.
I was gonna say if we had to do this podcast with no shirts on, I would exit the podcast, dude. I'll take that.
Yeah, right.
So
no, I've heard this before. So yeah.
So check this out. The first part I've heard, they become conditioned, right? They become conditioned to play small, which happens to to all of us. Like, what is your potential? What could you accomplish? What, how deep could you dig? Here's what's interesting. Check this out. The second part I'd never heard before. Second part was that when the fleas reproduce, guess how high the next generation jumps? They jump to where the lid once was. They play small because the example of everyone else around them playing small. And so I went into, James, your story of the 50-50-50. Actually, what I taught was the 50-50-50, which, by the way, no hyperbole, I think at that time was like the greatest like human feat ever, like for like a physical athletic feat. Like, it's just it's literally unbelievable. By the way,
I'll argue that with anybody.
Yeah, it's a logistical feat as well.
Yep.
And then so the story I taught, you and I did an interview once, and you talked about a bag full of whys, bag full of reasons. Like your daughter was like, "Yo, I'll meet you to run the race."
Yeah.
Anyway, you had to dig deeper than just one reason. One reason wasn't enough. And then I ended it by saying, then the guy finishes that, a number of years later does the Conquer 100, and then ultimately does 101. And the concept was, there's always reasons to quit. There's always reasons to keep going. And the reasons you choose will define you. Because there's always reasons, like right now, there's always reasons to quit your business or your career right now. There's also always reasons to keep going. And the reasons you choose will define you. There's always reasons to quit, like key relationships, marriages or key relationships. But there's also always reasons to keep going. And the reasons you choose will define you. Always reasons to quit your physical fitness journey. And there's always reasons to keep going. And the reasons you choose will define you. But you have to give more reasons to keep going than all the reasons not to. You have to stack those reasons. And that's how you jump out of the jar. That's how you set new normals. And so anyway, it's cool to be on with you, because I tell your story all over the world, bro.
Oh, thanks,
Well,
man.
dude, let me just do an intro let me do a quick intro.
100%, yeah.
For those of you that don't know, so I'm gonna give just our background real quick, Justin. So I met Justin, oh, dude, it's been 15 years ago.
Yeah, probably 15.
And and you meet somebody, there's times when you'll run into people in your life and you're just instantly like, okay, I want to be around these type of people. And that was Justin for me. I met him, and I've been able to watch Justin through his career. Justin, I'm just real quick background, and you can give more detail if you want, but I know, like, you've been in a bunch of different industries, but I know at one point you guys were living in basically above the garage.
Mhm.
Was it your family, or was it your?
Yeah, my wife's parents,
So
the
in-laws
garage.
in this small garage. But this is something I teach my kids, and it's something that you taught me from our first interaction. I don't know if you remember this, but I met you. We were kind of visiting, and you'd said something kind of inspirational. I was like, man, that's pretty deep. And you're like, oh, sorry, man. I only listen to inspiring things. And so I talk to my kids about that all the time. I know when you go to the gym, you're not listening to music, you're listening to Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn. Like, you're always trying to better yourself. And so through your career, you've literally built now, like, I don't even know what your last company is valued at, but hundreds of millions of dollars that you've been able to generate in your life. I would love to know how many millionaires you've created through your efforts. But then not only that, this was the biggest thing for me, and the reason I wanted to get Justin on here is, not only have you helped people and you've been successful in business, but I watch you and I'm always amazed that you are continually trying to bring everyone around you up. Like, you really are the tide that's raising all ships. Like, I absolutely love that. Ultimate respect to you. I watch every LinkedIn video you ever post. Like, I'm absolutely enthralled and amazed at the man you've become, the father that you are, the husband that you are, the number of people you've been. So you've created these massive businesses, but now you travel and you speak and you inspire and you invite other people to step up their game as well. So, like, huge kudos to you. And maybe if you want to give just a little background on top of that, and then we want to kind of dig into, your insights, the things you've seen that have helped you build grit, and some of the stories of people that you've inspired and the grit they've displayed.
Real quick, this is an interesting point you brought up, and something that I've witnessed Justin too. I've known him for at least 15 years as well, and just kind of watched him from the shadows. Just a spectacular journey. And it is the number one thing that I recognized was he put all of his desires aside, and he shifted to try to help everybody else climb the mountain and reach the mountaintop.
Oh yeah, amazing.
And I was speaking to a group the other day, to a small group of leaders up at Sundance by our house, and I left them with this message and this challenge. And I said, if you honestly try to help everybody else around you achieve their goals and bring everybody up to the next level, as a byproduct, you'll win. It's impossible for you not to achieve every single one of your dreams, desires, and passions, or goals, if you do that. And so it's something that I've really respected about you, Justin, is you really go out of your way to make people feel important. You go out of your way to improve those around you, and you bring the level of everybody around you up. So that's something that, like, I've really watched amazing from the outside.
Well, dude, listen, you guys just earned the keynote at my funeral. So you guys can tag team the keynote and just tell everyone how great I was, So, it's interesting. I worked with a guy, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying. I tell people, this is the secret. This is the secret to building an amazing career, secret to building a really fulfilling life. And also the secret to to adding a ton of value, with your legacy. I worked with a guy years ago that built some humongous teams within his business. And one of them was a team that was primarily like Mexican-American. There were folks that lived in America from Mexico. This is a team in San Diego. These events that he would do, they'd be like 10,000 person events for just that one team. So he had a humongous business with these different teams that he built. So anyway, they do this big event. He's kind of the rock star, he's the main leader, and he's this, he's a super successful guy. So anyway, the event ends. He goes down into the crowd. He's kind of being swarmed. People want to take a picture with him, shake his hand, meet him. And as this is happening, he sees this woman. He says she was like in her 80s, this Mexican-American woman. She like slowly kind of moved her way through the crowd. And they never spoke. They were too far away. There was too much happening, too much commotion. But she had a little note, and she reached all the way through the people, and she put this little note like in a suit jacket and just like gently tapped a suit jacket and kind of worked her way back through the crowd. So anyway, that night, it's like 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. Everyone finally, he's taking the last picture, shaking the last hand. He goes up into his room and he takes off his tie and starts doing a shirt, and he takes off his jacket and he thinks, oh my gosh, he thinks of that note, So he reaches back in the jacket, grabs this little note, and it's a crinkled up little piece of paper. And so he kind of uncrinkles it like this. And the note said the secret. The note had the secret. In broken English, this woman wrote, "The peoples are better because you came. The peoples are better because you came." And if every interaction that you have with people, if you could focus on this idea of like, are the people better because I came? Are they better because I was here? Like, am I leaving people better than I found them? Like, are they, maybe they leave and they were, my enthusiasm rubbed off on them, or my sincerity, or my authenticity, or my passion, or my confidence, like that rubs off on people. If the people are always better, every Zoom, every message you send, every video you put out, every interaction with your employees, every interactions with your customers, every interaction with your family, your friends, if the people are always better because you came, you'll always win. Like that's the secret. So just to kind of, piggyback on some of these concepts you guys are hitting, but Tyrell, my story, it's interesting. I love grit. I love that that's the kind of the overall theme of your podcast. I love it for 2 reasons. One is that is you two to me, like grit is like,
thanks, man.
that is you guys. And then the second thing is that, man, I look back at my journey and I tell people the word until can guarantee your success. Og Mandino wrote that great book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. He wrote these scrolls. There was 10 scrolls. The third scroll said, I will persist until I succeed. Most people persist until it gets hard. They persist until someone says no. They persist until the customer cancels, or the employee quits. They persist until the economy shifts. They persist until those things happen. There's these really rare people, you two or two of them, that, man, I don't know. They just somehow persist until they succeed. They just like keep pushing through until they succeed. There was a study at the University of Pennsylvania. I think you guys will find interesting. So it was a 22-year study, 350,000 people. They spent millions of dollars doing it. And they studied these people, and they said that there was a thinking pattern that began to emerge that they said was predictive of success. So check this out. Wouldn't you want to know what they're thinking about that made them predictive of success? In other words, success became predictable, the people that thought this way. What the thinking pattern was they were optimistic. It was optimism. They were optimistic people. In other words, the glass was half full most of the time. You know what I'm saying? They're like, look for the right in the world, So there was 2 characteristics of optimistic people. Number one is they had an unrealistic expectation that they were going to be successful. I think that term unrealistic expectation is so interesting, because I feel like according to who? Like, I wonder if these academic researchers were like, they would hear of their dreams, hear of their goals, hear what they're going to go do. And they're like, in their notes, they're like, no way, dude. Like, over the next 22 years, that's so unrealistic. They're going to pull it off. The things that both of you have accomplished, James, very specifically and very visibly, with the 50-50-50 and then the Conquer 100, like that, dude, you talk about unrealistic expectations. That's like maybe the ultimate definition. It's just not even realistic, dude. It's impossible. But yet he somehow did it. The second characteristic they had was that they tried new things until they succeeded. And another way to say it is they persisted until they succeeded. Like they wrote it down saying they tried new things until, right? Like they just like tried this, tried that. You guys know how it is as like entrepreneurs or as leaders or as a parent. You come up to the wall in your life and you're either like, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go like around it to the right, to the left. I'm going to dig under it, or I'm just going to beat on this thing until I find the weak spot, and I'm going to freaking go through this thing. Like, giving up or not knocking it down is not one of the options. Like, not getting through it is not one of the options. You just persist until you figure it out. You try new things until you figure it out. So as I think back to my career, That was it, dude. I just,
Yeah.
I tried new things. I was pretty optimistic. I had unrealistic expectations. I was going to be able to pull it off. And I tried new things. You know, my first business failed. I have no college education. Came from a divorced family at age 12, moved 13 times in the 7 years through the teenage years. And, you know, my first business goes out of business. I'm below zero financially. I used to work at a mall selling cartoon Bible videos at the mall. I was the guy at the mall that you tried to like avoid eye contact. So I worked at the mall kiosk, you know? And so I'm like below zero financially. I went and got 2 part-time jobs. One was on the weeknights. One was on the weekends. We moved my kids, at the time, our 2 little kids and my pregnant wife into the loft of my wife's parents' garage. So my 2 kids are sleeping in the closet. I have 2 part-time jobs. Now I'm chasing the dream to be free as an entrepreneur with another business.
Yeah.
And man, there's many times that you just wonder, like, is it possible for me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's possible for James. I know it's possible for Tyrell. I know it's possible for other people to succeed. Is it gonna be possible for me? And I remember listening to an audio series by Jim Rohn. It was so cool. He had a bunch of speakers like you guys. He had like the Dennis Waitleys and the Brian Tracys and so on, these great, the Les Browns. They spoke on this weekend seminar. And at the very end, Mr. Rohn stands up and he says, we now have enough testimonials and enough personal experiences to conclude that it's possible to create and to design an extraordinary life. And again, if you're listening to this podcast, this might be catching you in one of those seasons of struggle. So in other words, you're past the dream section, you're in the struggle section, but you're not yet to the victory section. And so when you hear people tell these big stories like, oh dude, hundreds of millions, like our business has done 2.4 billion in revenue in the last number of years. You're like, oh my gosh, you hear that. You think good for them, but I don't know if it's possible for me. And now what I get to share with you is this, my friend, is that I now get to add my testimonial and my personal experience to this proverbial list of people that get to hopefully breathe some life into you through a podcast like this to tell you that your dreams, your goals are possible, that it's possible for you to create and to design an extraordinary life. So I'm always, honored and fired up to be able to share that vision with people, to say, you gotta have unrealistic expectations and you got to persist until you succeed.
I love that. And I've got 5 kids and my 2 older girls are going into the real world as adults, and they're struggling and trying to find their way and make ends meet, and things aren't easy, and they're learning a lot of things. And I had a conversation with my daughter today, and it was about these little kind of little miracles happen that we see all the time in our lives as we're struggling, and then we have this little taste of victory. And she said, man, I guess everything just always works out. And I said, yes, that is the most brilliant mindset that you can have. And if we, not blindly, but if we truly have that deep rooted belief that everything is going to work out, and magically it does. If you have that belief and you become master problem solvers in what you're doing. You talked about, the goal, the dream, and then that middle section that a lot of people are in. And that middle section, it's kind of a cool place to be, because that's where it's like uncontrolled chaos and unpredictability and all these things are happening. And that's where you get to make that decision. Okay, I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this. I'm going to quit. Or I'm just going to keep chipping away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to do this. And eventually, I tell my kids all the time, like, guaranteed you will make it to where you're trying to go if you just keep showing up every single day and just doing a little bit. And I promise you, 100% of the time, you're going to fail if you just stop putting in the effort. But if you take a look around, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, if you can dream of something that you want to be, would you be willing to put in the work now? Like, my life has completely changed. And 15 years ago when this started and everybody said it was impossible, and I had that pinned out on the wall, and I was heavily criticized for like so hyper focused on this one thing and sacrificing so much, man, if I could have seen and realized what my life was going to be now, I would have never and I didn't waver, but I would have even like wavered less. I would have gone all in. And so it's just been this amazing journey to keep fighting, keep showing up, keep chipping away. And all of a sudden, life doesn't get easier. You become stronger, you become more resilient, you change as a person, and all of a sudden you start to navigate things a lot differently.
So let me validate everything you just said with the actual like statistics, because basically what you're saying to your kids is like, guys, if you just keep grinding, if you keep pushing, if you keep solving problems, remember, there's a big difference between being a problem identifier and a problem solver. there's value in identifying problems, but there's huge economic value in solving them. If you can like solve problems, and to your point, solve one at a time, like next one. Great leaders solve problems. That's what great leaders do. When you were doing your 50-50-50 in the Conquer 100, I mean, honestly, each day it's just kind of like, how do we solve the problems right in front of us? That's part of how you get there, right? So the University of Scranton did a study that said that it was a study on New Year's resolutions.
My
What
favorite.
percentage of people do you guys think? Yeah. What percentage of people do you think kept their New Year's resolutions, not for a year, but for a month?
Dude,
The answer was
less than
8%. 92% didn't even keep it for the.
I was going to say less than
Crazy.
10%. Yeah.
Okay. So that was after a month was 8%. If you keep your resolutions for longer than 30 days, you're already in the top 8%.
Yeah, it's
Like,
amazing.
my point is, your whole thing of like, if you want to separate yourself, kids, if you really want to be in the top, 1% of your industry, listen, the other thing is having dreams, and you're telling your kids, like, cast out your vision or your life 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. If you have written goals or like a written dream, even if you're dreaming and thinking about this stuff, I tell people there's 2 levels of dreaming. You want to dream a dream that inspires you. You would dream a dream that inspires you, because dreams are fuel. It's like fuel for your soul. Like you can't drive around your city today with no fuel in your tank. You can't go build a life with no fuel in your soul, a dream, a vision, because your vision's what pulls you through the hard time. Like, I'll give you guys an example. Whenever we're going through hard times, the question that we subconsciously ask or even consciously ask is it always going to be this way? Because if the answer is it's always going to be this way, like James, I think of you, like when you're like body's done, right? If your body's always going to be that way, always that broken down, well, then I can't finish this. But if the answer is no, there's hope. No, there's optimism. Like tomorrow we're going to feel better. We're going to get some rest. Well, then you're like, hey, if I have some rest, then I can keep going. You know what I'm saying? But if it's always going to be this way, I can't keep doing it. So optimists say, is it always going to be this way? They cast out vision. That's where the dream comes in. And then the second level of dreaming is dreaming dreams that inspire others. This is the next level of dreamers. Like Walt Disney started with a pencil and Steamboat Willie, a pencil, paper, and Steamboat Willie. It's like, it was a dream that kind of inspired him. He ultimately dreamed, the genius of Walt was he dreamed dreams that inspire others, like Epcot centers, Japan, Disneyland, all of the cruise liners. That wasn't Walt's dream, but he allowed other people to, his dream was big enough that others could dream within the dream. And all of a sudden he created this empire that's Disney. So I love those principles that you're teaching your kids. And statistically, from a research perspective, all of those things that you're teaching your kids are all the reasons people become successful. They have written dreams, written goals, and then they persist through those barriers where everyone else quits off. And then all of a sudden you separate yourself and you're in the top 5% or top 3% of what you do.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned dreams, because literally, as I travel around the world, I've been super blessed to speak in over 50 countries. It's literally the number one thing that I've realized and recognized with adults is they've stopped dreaming. They've stopped dreaming. And they get beaten down and they get put in these boxes and said, this is what your role is. And they've lost creativity. They've lost the dream. And what that does is exactly what you said, is they've lost hope. And I truly believe that hope is life. And, I talk about this all the time. My favorite book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in there, he talks about hope, and he could tell the moment that somebody lost hope, and it's because they died. And if that's truth, then hope is life. And in order to have that hope, you have to have that dream, that something you're chasing in the distance, that passion, that dangling carrot. And so dreaming is so important. And I challenge every audience member that I talk to every single time. I'm like, think back to when you're in elementary school and you're staring out the window and you're ignoring the math teacher. You were dreaming about who you can be, what you want to do, the impact, who your hero was, all these things. And it all comes down to dreaming. And so I wake up every single day with a purpose, and it's always filled with gratitude. And then I dream, what could it be like? And I this is a question I want everybody to ask themselves when they wake up. What if it was like this? What if I did all the things I set out to do? What if I showed up every single day? What if I did that? What if I was consistent? What if I had discipline? What would my life be like? What if? So start dreaming and start asking yourself, what if? And just that statement could completely change your day. And if you start that way every single day and you have the mindfulness to dream, you'll get excited and you'll want to show up in your life and like you said, bring those other people and have people participate in your dream. I think that's a fascinating point.
And it's a good point to bring up. Like, I just want to share a story, Justin. I know you shared with me, and I may murder this. It's been a long time ago you shared the story with me. So help me with it. But there's going to be hard times. Like your journey was not smooth. I can remember you telling me once that you kind of got to a point where you were questioning yourself. You're laying awake at night and you
For
turn to your
sure.
wife and you're like, babe, can I do this? And do you remember what she said? Or do you care sharing what she said to you? So I
I
might
want to hear.
murder this.
I want to hear what I
Okay, so
told you, because what I remember her just basically saying is she believed in me, and I tell people
Yes.
he believed in me more than sometimes than I even believed in me.
Yes, 100%. And I that always resonates with me that not only is it important that you have dreams, it's important you share those dreams and important that you surround yourself. Like honestly, that's one of the reasons why I keep you guys in my life
Yeah,
is
yeah,
because your dreams inspire me.
yeah, yeah,
I want to be bigger, I want to be better because you guys, and I encourage everybody to do that. Make sure you've got people that are supporting your dreams and your goals and tell them about them. Like share
So
those.
Tyrell, check this out. I want to see if you guys agree with me on this. If you're listening to this right now and you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, I'm going to start telling people about my dreams. Oftentimes what happens, particularly when you're on the come up, right? You're just like trying to like go for it in your life. Like maybe jump out of the jar, as it were. What happens is when you start telling people about your dreams and goals. So Martin Luther King, I'll give you guys a quick example. This will illustrate the point, because I want to see if you guys have had the same experience. So August 28th, 1963 is when he gave the famous I Have a Dream speech at Lincoln Memorial. What a lot of people don't know is that I Have a Dream is never written in the I Have a Dream speech. They still have the speech, right? It was never written. And the day before, August 27th, he's sitting with his most trusted inner circle advisors. They're in one of the hotel lobbies, and they're basically crafting the speech. Like, hey, so this is his moment, 250,000 people, Lincoln Memorial. This is like this pivotal moment in history, particularly in the civil rights movement. And they're saying, what do we put in the speech? Like, what do we talk about? Do we talk about do we talk about policy, like government policy? Do we talk about, God? He was a former Southern Baptist preacher. Like, what do we talk about? And Martin said to him, he goes, guys, I'll tell him about the dream, because on street corners, in city halls, at churches, anyone that would listen to him, he would tell him about this dream that he had for the country, this vision that he had, where little black boys and little black girls could walk down the street and hold hands with little white boys and little white girls, and they could walk down the street as brothers and as sisters. Or this dream that he had that people wouldn't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This was this dream. So guess what his most trusted inner circle advisor said to him? They said, Martin, they said, your dream is trite, it's cliche, and it's overused. Like, don't tell him about the dream, please. Just leave that whole thing out of it. Like, here's some other stuff. So he's 11 minutes into the speech. The speech is going well compared to what, most normal people like us could do. But it is not a change the world speech. This is not like a remember forever speech. He's 11 minutes in, and Mahalia Jackson is a gospel singer. She's standing up on the stage behind him, and she kind of yells out, she goes, tell him about the dream, Martin, tell him about the dream. And that's when he goes into his cadence. And I have a dream today, in this big rhythm and this big cadence, and just smashes the speech, and became truly one of the most iconic speeches ever. I share that with you to say, a lot of you will say to your friend about your dreams, and they basically say your dreams are trite, they're cliche, or they're overused. Now, here's what's interesting. If I were to call James and Tyrell, I just use them to illustrate the point, and I were to tell them about big unrealistic dreams I had, big unrealistic goals, I promise you, they wouldn't be like, I don't think so, bro. Like, I don't think. They'd be like, dude, you got this, man. Even if they didn't think I got it, they'd be like, you got this. Like, James, you're boxing. I'm like, you freaking got this, man. Like, that guy who's going to wish he never would have boxed you. Like, it's on. Let's do this thing. My friends, you got to find people. I think here's the question I have for you guys. I feel like the more successful you become, the more you cheer people on. 100%. It's like the less successful someone is, the more they kind of try and hold you down, tear you down a little bit, all my successful friends, they're like, dude, you got this, go for it, make it happen. So has that been your guys' experience too, that
1,000%.
in those early days, they kind of tear you down. In the later days, you get around people like you two, they're like, yo, you can make this happen.
Well, I think I recognized really early when I was, and I've always been a big dreamer, and I recognized really quickly the emotions I felt when someone like would try to trounce on my dream, and then the opposite emotions that I would feel when someone was like, "No, dude, I'm all in." And it's so funny. I've got, we run a business now, and I've been fortunate enough to grow it to be a multi-million-dollar business, and it's just so humbling that came from nothing. Like it was a dream, man. It was a dream to do this. And to impact people around the world. Well, I was having a call with my team literally yesterday, and I slipped and I said 200 Ironmans. And all of a sudden, Casey sits like it was like a lightning bolt hit him out of his seat, and he said, "I'm in. When are we doing it?" and that's the kind of guys these are, and that's who I have around me. Is like Casey was like so excited and fired up to like for the next challenge, the next dream, the whatever it is, because we've been on this journey together. But it was such a moment for me to where I was like, these guys get it, man. They want to see people win. I've surrounded myself with unbelievable people. And although it was a slip, I'll never do 200. But he was like, dude, did you just say, is that what we're doing? Because I'm in. If that's the dream, then I'm in. And it was just such a really cool moment for me to know that I have that type of community
Yeah.
around me, that I have those dreamers on my team, that they support my craziness and my dreams. But it was like he didn't even hesitate. And it's the same thing with the 50 and the 100. These guys are like, I pitch an idea to them and they're like, well, why haven't we started yet? You know what I mean?
You know, I had an interaction with David. I'd love to share both this with you two. I thought this really resonated with me. So there's a nonprofit that I work with. We raise money. We help vets start their own business called Warrior Rising, do a ton of stuff with them. Well, I was on the phone 2 days ago, and there was one of the individuals I was on the phone with. His wife just happened to be on in the background. She was talking, and we were specifically talking. We have one individual that kind of works with us that is pretty negative, and it's hard on all of us because the rest of the group is very entrepreneurial, very motivated, and in the background, I hear her yell out. She's like, well, "How much crap do you want in your brownie?" And it just caught me off guard. And so I turned to my buddy, his name's Dan. I'm like, Dan, what in the heck is she talking about? And he's like, oh, here, let her tell you. And so she shares this story. She grew up in a Southern Baptist family, and her dad would share this. He was actually a preacher, and he would share this example. And he would just say, look, he would literally get on stage and he would start making brownies. He'd put in the brownie mix, he'd put in the eggs, he'd put in the oil, and then he had a bag with dog poop in it. And he would talk to somebody in the front row and he would say, hey, how much dog poop do you want in your brownie? And they'd be like, I don't want any. And so he talked to the next person. He's like, well, what about you? You want just a little bit? Do you want half a dog poop, or you want the full thing? And they'd be like, no, I don't want any. I don't want any dog poop in my brownie. And then he would take that analogy and he would say, well, then why do you allow crap into your lives? And that really resonated with me. I actually went straight home that night and did that example for my kids, which was funny to watch their faces as I'm making these brownies for it. But it happens. And I'm encouraging everyone out there, like, there's sometimes where you're allowing crap into your life. You're allowing negative people in, and you've got to be willing to prune that relationship tree and cut those branches and allow the good things in, allow the positive, allow the Justin Princes in that can motivate and inspire and invite you to be better and be bigger.
Let me just hit this while we're on this subject. You may not get like personal access to Tyrell or personal access to James, meaning maybe you listen to their podcast, maybe you follow them on social. In James's case, maybe you read some of his books, that kind of thing. My friend, some of my biggest mentors I've had in my life were people I've never met. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
But what I did is, like, Jim Rohn says, you want to stand guard at the door of your mind. And so you only let certain things in. Like all of us, like on my phone right now, I have a password, right? So mine is, I can use my face, but if someone were to pick up my phone, they'd have to type in a password. I think all of us are that way. We have passwords on our phones, passwords on our computers. We have passwords. Why are we that way? It's because that's sensitive information there, right? That's really sensitive information. We don't want everyone getting access to all of our stuff. Well, your mind, your dreams, your goals, like this creative power in your brain is maybe your most sensitive resource, your most sensitive asset. And yet we let everyone get into that. Like on social, they're getting into it. We don't curate our social feeds. We don't purposefully follow and intentionally follow some people and unfollow others. We purposely let people in their voices into our life. Some people, you can't cut them out of your life. You know, it's a mom, it's a sister, it's a brother, or that kind of thing, but you can limit. And you can also limit how much power you give them. You say, Mom, listen, I love you so much. And I love you in all these areas. And you're my mom. I'll do anything for you. But Mom, when it comes to this subject, I'm not going to listen to your advice on this subject. I'm going to listen to those that believe in me and those that tell me that I can do it. So you limit that. You create passwords and protect these different areas of your dreams and goals. And you can have, again, you could listen to a podcast just like this, never meet James, never meet Tyrell, ever in your whole life. But you proactively listen to this stuff and them feeding the belief in yourself, them feeding that you can do it. I had a friend of mine sit next to former two-time President Ronald Reagan, and they're at a national charity awards dinner in DC. They're up on the stand, it goes podium, Reagan, then my buddy, and then the people are in the round tables out there. And they're eating the convention food, the banquet food, the chicken and broccoli. And my friend says to him, he goes, it was the best question I could think to ask. He said, Mr. Reagan, how did you become the two-term president of the United States? And he's thinking, man, I hope that's a good question. And Reagan says, it's interesting. He said, when I was a young boy, he said, I wanted to play football. And I told some of my friends laughed at me. They're like, Ron, you're going to get crunched out there. You're just kind of a little guy. He goes, I ultimately went on to play high school football. He said, I listened to those who believed in me and I listened to those who told me that I could. He said, when I was a high school football player, I told some friends that I wanted to move to Hollywood and become a famous actor. And they're like, Ron, you're a football player. What do you even know about acting? Like, what are you talking about? He said, I ultimately went to Hollywood and became a famous actor. I asked your either parents or grandparents. They said, no, like Ronald Reagan was an actor.
Right.
He said, I listened to those who believed in me and I listened to those who told me that I could. He said, when I was an actor, I told some friends, I want to become the governor of the state of California. And they're like, Ron, with all due respect, bro, you're an actor. Like, what do you know about politics? Like governor of state of California? Like, what are you talking about? He said, I ultimately became a governor of the state of California. He said, I listened to those who believed in me and I listened to those who told me that I could. He said, when I was a governor, I told some friends, I want to become the president of the United States of America. And they're like, Ron, I mean, with all due respect, you're just a governor. Like, what do you know about becoming a president? He said, I ultimately became a 2-term president of the United States. In fact, one of the more influential presidents in U.S. history. He said, I listened to those who believed in me and I listened to those that told me that I could. So you give more weight to those that believe in you, more weight to those that tell you that you can do it, and way less weight, way less impact to those that tell you that you can't.
I love that.
Phenomenal.
And I want to follow up with 2 thoughts right there. One was, you see a lot of people that are like, I got to take a social media break. And they're like, I'm taking a break from social media. And my wife, she said to me that she's like, I don't understand why people need a break from social media. If that's the case, you need to change what you're allowing to be
100%.
on your social media, because
Yeah,
we
for sure.
ultimately have control. It's like when it frustrates me, but I buy a pair of new shoes and all of a sudden I get bombarded with advertisements for these shoes. And I'm like, I already bought the shoes. I don't need to be advertised those shoes. But it's true. The algorithm will pick up the
Yeah.
things that you're looking at. And so if you don't like what the algorithm is feeding you, change what you're doing. My wife says, I love when I get on social media because it's puppies, it's old houses, it's cows. And like she starts to feed on those. And then the other side to that is
Next thing you know, you own a puppy, an old house, and a cow.
dude, I've got 3 puppies. I mean, it's crazy. And then
They
next thing
ordered
I
a
know-
cow.
Next thing I know, I'm gonna have a cow. But it's amazing about, I love what you said about controlling what comes into our minds. And here's what's fascinating is your story about the president is he had that belief in himself because of the information and downloads that he was getting. And what was ultimately his path to success would have been his self-talk. And his self-talk was in a direct reflection to the positive talk that he was getting for others. And I was listening to something the other day, and this really resonated to me. And it said, you wouldn't be friends with the person that talks to you the way you talk to yourself
Totally.
inside your head. And so if that's the case and you find yourself really being hard on yourself and not being that positive person and not wanting to find those dreams, one, you've got to change your influence and what you're consuming, because that is a direct reflection or correlation to how we talk to ourselves. And to me, if words matter, then what we say to ourselves is the most important thing. And trust me, ask yourself this question: would I be friends with the person that talks to me the way that I talk to myself?
Guys, it's a simple formula that I teach. It's I equals IO. And James, this is everything you just said. I equals IO. I is input in. So the input in to your mind equals IO, which is the input out. So like mindset input in is the mindset input out. Again, to me, and I say this with no flattery at all. To me, this is just like real life. You're one of the greatest examples for reals, like in human history, with no exaggeration, of like the power of mindset, like kind of like mind over matter, the power of like thinking through something and looking at it from like an input in. The inputs that you allowed into your mind, both in like original ideation of getting to become an athlete, to like, all the processes of the original marathons and, Olympics sprints and the whole thing, into like your first Ironmans and full tries, into the 50-50 and the 100 conquer 100, the whole thing. The input in is part of what created the input out. Like if you wouldn't have thought of things like that, you would have quit way, 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 way earlier, because you'd have been like, I can't do it. Or your mindset was so strong because of the inputs in. My friends, you get to control all this stuff. You get to control it. And by the way, when you change the inputs in, you will literally like instantaneously change the inputs out. So if you're stuck in your life and you're frustrated and you're stuck in your business and stuck in your career, and listen, we just got to change the inputs in, just change all that stuff. And it starts looking at life differently, because remember, you don't see the world as you see the world as you are. So what's wrong is true, and what's right is true. I see the thorn, you see the rose. The flower didn't change. Like, it's raining outside, and you're grateful, and I'm pissed. Like, the weather didn't change. We don't see the world as the world is. We see the world as we are. And what's his name? Wayne Dyer. Wayne said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. One of the ways you change the way you look at things is you change the inputs. When you change the inputs in, all of a sudden the way you look at things changes because you now change the inputs out.
You know, I got to share a story, and I want your two feedback on this. This was something that happened this last year. I went to Alberta, Canada. I was going on a bighorn sheep expedition. I
was going to say, what are the odds? What are the odds this is a hunting story?
and I was clear back in there. We're in the middle of nowhere. We've backpacked in. We're about 17 miles that we've hiked in looking for bighorn sheep, and we see this guy hiking along the ridge, and it's getting pretty close to dark. And the one of the guides that's with me, he's like, "Oh, that's gray wolf." And so I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, there's an old Indian guy that lives in the closest town, but he comes out on these spiritual journeys, and he'll come out and hike by himself, clear back in the wilderness, and he'll spend 10 or 15 days by himself."
Jeez.
And so we end up kind of making our path intersect with him. And we sit down that night. We have a little teeny fire, our little tents, and we're sitting there talking. And they were talking to him, and the guy's like, "Dude, he always just gives me such great insights." And one of the other kids that was there, just kind of as a packer, he's like, "Well, I've heard this concept of what we're just talking about." And he gave the analogy. So we're talking to this guy, and I don't know what his real name is. They all call him Gray Wolf. And he said, "Look, I heard this story once that, there's two wolves inside of you, supposedly an Indian legend. And the wolf that succeeds is the wolf that you feed."
Yeah.
And this old Indian guy sitting there, and I'm just observing. And we've all heard that story. And this Indian guy looks across the fire at him, and he goes, "Why wouldn't you just kill the bad wolf?" And it resonated so deep with me. I'm like, holy crap, I've heard that story a million times, but I've never thought of killing the bad wolf. And I think that happens to all of us. We're like, no, I don't really want to kill him. I'm willing to feed him a little bit just so he's still there. When why not just kill him? Like, if it truly is something you don't want in your life, then just get rid of it. Like, it's that simple.
Okay, now
I would love your thoughts.
Now, okay,
Give us feedback.
I'm gonna give you my thoughts on that, and I absolutely love that, but I'm gonna push back a little bit on it.
You give to me.
And to me, I think the good wolf and the bad wolf is the bully inside of our head and the conversations that we have. And to me, when the bully inside of our head or the bad wolf shows up, it means that we are showing up on our journey and we're pushing boundaries. And so for me, if I don't hear from the bully inside my head for a long period of time, I question, am I showing up in my life? And so
Are you really pushing?
Am I really pushing? Am I really showing up? Or am I being complacent? And to me, I believe that I'm never just standing still. I'm either moving forward or moving backwards. And so when I hear in your words the angry elf or wolf, not angry elf, that's a chapter in my book, the angry wolf or the bad wolf, to not kill it. To me, if I killed it, I wouldn't have that barometer or that indicator that I'm showing up or not showing up, because I've actually learned to embrace that voice in my head or that mean wolf. And if I don't hear from him in a while, I question, okay, am I getting complacent? Am I slipping into that comfort zone for too long? Because it's okay to drop into comfort and discomfort and comfort and discomfort. But when I don't hear from that voice or that wolf for a long period of time, then I sit back and I reflect and I go, okay, do I need to up my game? Do I need to show up at another level? Have I become soft or complacent? And so for me, I love that concept of killing it, but I also love the notion that it's there for a reason. And it's a messenger that either lets us go, and we have to become masters at overcoming that voice in order to continue to push through. So I don't want to kill it, because to me it's a message to let me know if I'm showing up or if I'm getting soft.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you my take on it, and Justin, I want yours. So my take on it is there's a lot of wolves. Like, it's not just one. And so you may kill one wolf. Let's say it's addiction. Let's say it's pornography. You've killed the wolf of pornography. You're not addicted to it anymore. It's to the point where it doesn't even affect you anymore. You don't even think about it. But then the next wolf that pops up is anger.
Yeah.
You have anger that comes up, and you're mad at your wife, you're mad at your kids. And so when that pops up, you kill that emotion, you get rid of that one, and you're moving on to the next one. So for me, how I took it from him is like, there's going to be a lot. Like I'm working continuously, but I'm not going to feed that up at all. When those thoughts or those emotions come up that are negative in my life, like I'm going to kill that and I'm going to move it on to the next one.
Okay, I'll buy into this.
You buy that theory?
I'll buy that theory.
Jason, what do you,
Okay,
Justin, what do you
no,
got?
okay, hang on. So now,
This is
now,
getting deep.
now,
We're gonna have to change the name of our podcast.
yeah, to deep shit.
This is deep
But
threat.
now, but now we're talking about this a similar thing. So that voice, when it shows up, we want to learn how to manage and slay that voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And slay and
Not let it
silence
control
him
us.
so that you keep going. So I love it. Okay, let's start killing him. That's good. I'm all about it.
What do you got, Justin?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's some nuance. There's some nuance that both of you are like threading. So I want to hit you with a couple things. One
He's gonna say
is
something so much more
We're
intelligent than
so
we say
much
it.
more.
He's more articulate. He's better looking. His arms are bigger.
Dang
Let's
it,
just-
man.
we can't compete with this guy.
Here we
Here we go.
Here we go with these two. So no, the nuance, I have kind of three different ways to look at it. The first one is from a Christian perspective, one of the things that like from a Christian, like Jesus perspective would be is to become meek, like the meek will inherit the earth, to become meek. And a lot of times I think when people think of meekness, it's almost like downward subservient glances, shoulders slumped over, like you're very meek, you'd be pushed around. Jordan Peterson, I think, hits it with the most unique perspective. I think a lot of people would feel like meekness is weakness. Jordan Peterson says a rabbit that does not attack you is not meek. He says a tiger that doesn't attack you is meek, because a tiger could tear you in half, but they choose not to, where a rabbit couldn't hurt you. So if it doesn't attack you, that's not strength, right? That's not showing, I want to say resistance, but it's basically not showing any attack, right?
Restraint.
So restraint. Thank you. And so the point is meekness is having full power. It's that old thing that says it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war.
Right.
And so having that full power. So James, that thing of like tapping into that and like, am I really pushing it? To me, there's a little bit of meekness in there, right? You have that full strength. So that's my first take. Second one would be, I do think that you can change your identity, because success is an identity process. You'll never outperform the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as a winner and you've anchored that identity, you literally can root out loser tendencies. You wouldn't lay there and quit like a loser. Your identity wouldn't allow you to do it. You would stand up and keep going. On the flip side, if you see yourself as a loser, you won't pay the price, do the work that a winner would do. So success is anchored in identities. And I do think you can root out old identities and replace them with new identities, to where you literally killed the old wolf. You're not lazy and fat and whining and blaming and complaining more. It's just not even part of your identity. You wouldn't even do it. The last part I would say is, and again, I think there's nuances here, because I think they're almost different subjects. I think that basically being pissed, I don't know how else to say it, like just where you're just freaking fired up, or just like, dude, what? Like that, like emotion of it. It burns like gunpowder. It burns really hot, really fast. You can't build your whole life on it, but you like that chip on your shoulder, that fired up. I've built huge businesses on pissed. I can only do it for about 3 to 6 months at a burst, because what burns for the longest is your dreams, your legacy, your goals. Like that stuff will burn long term. It like wake you up early, keep you up late for years and years and years and years and decades. But man, I can get fired up and be like, let's freaking go. Like, oh really? All right, watch this. And like all of a sudden I kick into like a whole different gear. But I don't think trying to build I think of Tom Brady. Tom Brady built, he was a 199th pick of the draft, dude. Like the guy was a total nobody. He was like the fourth string when he got there. He was a nobody. And then he had that chip, but he didn't build 7, NFL championships, 10 Super Bowls on just the chip. At some point he clicked into his identity. At some point he ridded himself of any loser tendencies, and that became his identity. So his legacy was the thing that pulled him through long-term. So I feel like there's nuances in all this. I think on things like the pornography, I think you can rip that stuff out, and you don't want to feed the other beast and, the other wolf in that example. In your anger, you don't want to feed the anger, other than you want to have the meekness to where you're the warrior in the garden. Like if something were to happen, you could tap into it and protect your family.
I love you said one phrase in there that I honed in on, and you said, watch this. And that was one of our massive mantras during the 100. In fact, we made a shirt that's available on our website right now, on ironcowboy.com, and it says, watch
That's
this.
so sick. That's so sick.
It says, watch this.
That's so
and-
sick.
And I love that because that's the confidence with a little bit of swagger that says, I believe in myself.
Exactly.
And I'm going to give you an opportunity to have a front row seat to what I do, because to what we talked about earlier in this podcast about showing up, not quitting, chipping away at the goal, and eventually we'll get there. That's one of my biggest mantras is just like, watch this. You may not believe in me, but I've put people around me on my team that believe in me, and we're going to chase this dream down together. And guess what? You do. You get to watch this. And so I love that you said that.
Yeah, I love that. I
Really,
love that.
really resonates with me. Well, Justin, I really want to um, thank you for sharing your wisdom. You have so much. I could literally talk to you for hours. In fact, it makes me question why we haven't done anything together as couples and families and things like that. And so we
What's
live
up?
like how many miles away?
Why are
from
you guys
each
play?
other?
Why are you guys player hating like that?
Yeah, I don't think we are. And so I'm gonna put it on the table. Like, let's get together as families, and I need to surround myself with better people. I believe you're in that category, and I want to continue to learn and grow from you. Where can people find you? Like, you put out a ton of content, you're super inspirational, you're massively influential, you're impacting people. And the way we started this podcast is you help everybody else win. And so where can people find you so that they can get that help to win in their own lives?
Yeah, so love being on with you guys, man. Two of my favorite people. Respect both you guys a ton, both in some in similar ways, and then some in really separate ways. I really have a lot of admiration for both of you. So you can go to my site, iamjustinprince.com. I am Justin Prince on kind of most of the social channels, or just type in Justin Prince. You should be able to find me. And man, I put out a ton of really consistent, free content. And it's one of those things, James, to your point, you can curate your social media experience to where you're constantly hearing from people that, have been there, have done that, and will share with you how, and then also are reminding you that your dreams and goals are possible, and that it's possible for you to create and design an extraordinary life. And so if I can be, part of that, when I was in that struggle section, I literally was driving down I-15, right by Southtown Mall. You guys know where this is, heading north.
That's where my fights are.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm tears rolling down my face, stressed out, below zero financially. And I had this conversation with myself, and I really had this conversation with God as like just talking out loud. I said, if I ever become successful, I promise I won't forget what it feels like to struggle, like all the pressure and all the like gulp in your throat when you're financially behind the 8 ball and so on. And then I said, if I ever become successful, I promise that I'll do every single thing that I can to help other people achieve their dreams and achieve their goals as I possibly can. Like I'll pour into other people. And so, I appreciate you guys letting me come on here and fulfill that second promise.
Well, and on top of that, Justin, you do some events live. Do you have any
Mhm.
coming up that people?
Yeah,
can-
we just actually booked it today. It's August. Let me look at my team booked. I think it's August 19th we're actually doing it in South Jordan, Utah. So
And so can they book that through your website? If they go to iamjustinprince.com, can they?
yeah, or
register
that, or
there?
hit me up. We'll probably, it's not August 19th. Hit me up if it's not on there. I'm trying to think where we're gonna hang off that link, but those events are off the charts, dude. They're leadership events and helping you. In our case right now, like, how do you thrive in a down economy? And that event's going to be off the charts. I'm really, really fired up about it.
Yeah,
Well,
super excited, brother.
I love events. I love stuff like that. If there's any way that Tyrell and I can help you with your events and things that you do and enhance your community, obviously we'd love to be a part of that. And I know we share the mindset of we just want to see other people win.
Yep.
And I wish more people would adopt this mindset of how many people can I help win today?
Absolutely.
And it would literally change the world. So Justin, thank you so much for
Love you, fellas.
and we appreciate you.
Love you,
And so-
brother. Honored to have you in our family. And obviously, if we can ever do anything for you or yours, please let us know.
Okay. Appreciate you guys, man. Thanks so much.
All right, guys, this
Appreciate
has been the Grit Show. Challenge yourself, show up every single day, do something gritty. And if there's anything I got from today, it's I want to try to help other people become better. So thank you, Justin. Have a good one.